Hey, old woman. You're old. Why are you talking so rudely? Oh, you audacious woman. How dare you challenge me today? Tell me, what did I say about you? How could you tell the whole village that I stole Kevin's chicken yesterday, huh? You're only good at spreading gossip before the sun even rises, telling everyone what's happening in my house. Hearing the commotion, everyone gathered to see what was happening. Even the village had arrived to mediate. Now, both of you, clearly explain why you're here arguing. The village head asked calmly, trying to understand the situation. But the two women kept talking over each other, making it impossible for anyone to understand the beginning or end of the story. Another woman interjected, "You two should take turns telling your side, then we'll understand. If you both talk at once, who can tell right from wrong?" Seeing that both women were getting agitated, the village head spoke again. "Nora, please tell your side of the story first." At this, Nora began to explain. "Village head, please help me settle this. This woman suddenly came to my house early this morning and started verbally assaulting me, accusing me falsely of stealing Kevin's chicken. Isn't that outrageous, sir?" Hearing Nora's account, many people whispered amongst themselves, but the village head wanted to hear both sides before passing judgment. He turned to the other woman and asked, "Nina, why do you say Nora falsely accused you?" "Village head, it's like this. Early this morning, I was sweeping my yard before going to the garden. Kevin passed by, and I asked him why he was out so early. He said, 'I'm not here for a visit. I'm here to ask for my chicken back.' I was confused and said, 'What are you talking about? My family doesn't even raise chickens. Why would you come here to ask for one?' Kevin then interjected, 'No, I'm here to get back the chicken you took last night. You probably thought it was a stray, so I'm here to trade it for a better rooster today.' Nina scoffed, 'Oh, Mr. Kevin, that's absurd. I stole your chicken, and you're here to ask for it back?' It was Nora, just this morning at the market, who told my family that your chicken was missing. She even said she saw me returning home last night, carrying the chicken.' Nina was furious and almost lost her temper. To prove her innocence, she led Kevin into her house to search everywhere. 'Do you see any chicken of yours here?' she challenged. 'So, are you saying Nora told you I took your chicken home?' 'Yes, she said so, which is why I'm here to retrieve it.' Nina continued, addressing the village head. 'Sir, how could I have stolen his chicken? I've been home since yesterday afternoon. My hens haven't gone anywhere. How could I be accused of stealing?' the village head asked. 'Do you have any proof that you didn't leave your house last night?' The problem is, no one knows. Only my two children were here, because my husband was working last night and didn't come home. She showed everyone her empty basket and said, 'Look, everyone, I haven't even been to the market to buy food for my children yet.' Seeing her still boiling with anger, someone asked her gently to calm down. At this, the village head called for Kevin to come so they could get to the bottom of it. When Kevin arrived, Nina rushed to him, grabbing his arm. 'Mr. Kevin, tell us clearly, did this woman, Nora, accuse me of stealing your chicken?' The village head approached Nina, calming her, then looked at Kevin, asking for a clear account. 'Now, Mr. Kevin, please explain exactly what happened so I can resolve this matter.' 'Well, to be honest, I didn't suspect anyone at all. I thought it was gone. So be it. But my wife was sad because that hen was a prolific layer. So she mentioned it to some women at the market. Then Nora here said she saw Nina coming home last night with a chicken from my house. Seeing that, I told my wife to ask for the chicken back or exchange it for another one. At this, Nora's voice grew even louder as she hurled insults at Kevin. Listen to me. Your family's business has nothing to do with me. Why would I bother spreading such rumors? Maybe your wife heard it from someone else and misunderstood it to be me. I haven't even seen your wife since this morning. By now, everyone understood the cause of the incident. In this village, everyone knew Nora's penchant for gossip, for adding salt and pepper to stories. Many even called her two-tongued Nora because she bad-mouthed anyone she disliked. The village head was well aware of her stubborn and deceitful nature. He advised the two women to let it go for the sake of peace in the village. Such an argument early in the morning would ruin the neighborly spirit. But Nora, even though she was in the wrong, never admitted it. And when she heard the village head urging them to drop it, she became afraid of being suspected. She quickly turned to the village head and said, "What do you mean by that, sir? Are you implying it's my fault?" She looked up at the sky, raised her hand and declared loudly, "I swear, if I am falsely accusing Nina of stealing the chicken, then may my entire family suffer a tragic death." Everyone's faces turned pale at her terrible oath. Kevin and Nina were also alarmed and said, "Oh my goodness! Why swear such a dreadful oath over such a small matter? It's just a tiny chicken. Why need such a potent curse?" Now, no matter what Nora said, everyone understood. Living in the same village, everyone knew each other's personalities. There's a saying, parents give birth, heaven gives temperament. So no one held a grudge against Nora for the false accusation. But this time, Nora's oath was too strong, and what was even more frightening was that many people had seen her talking to Kevin's wife at the market earlier that morning. Yet, she claimed she hadn't met her, even risking her entire family's lives to uphold her own reputation. The village head stood there, shaking his head in dismay. But an unusual event occurred right at that moment. As soon as Nora finished her oath, a flash of lightning appeared and vanished quickly. Everyone was so engrossed in the conversation that no one noticed, except for an old man in his 80s, who saw it and shook his head with a look of sorrow. The village head and everyone else dismissed the incident, not wanting to damage the village's harmony. Life returned to normal. Everything was fine. But one person seemed troubled by some fear, making him uneasy. That was the 80-year-old man. His health was remarkable for his age, always eating and working properly, staying strong. He kept pacing in and out of his house, irritating his wife, who asked, "What's wrong with you? Always pacing back and forth. Haven't we been married for decades that you can't tell me?" "It's not that I can't tell you. I'm just thinking of how to help someone," the old man explained to his wife and continued pacing. They had been together for nearly 60 years, so his wife understood his temperament very well. Only something serious would make him act this way. So she softly asked, "What is it, dear? Tell me." "Two heads are better than one." He remained silent and continued pacing, but perhaps seeing his wife's point, he sat down and spoke to her. "This concerns Nora. Do you remember Nora's argument with Nina? Oh, I thought it was something serious. I remember that incident, and I must admit, Nora was truly audacious. Not only did she not admit her mistake, she even dared to swear such a dreadful oath. What do you know to say that? He asked again, perhaps sensing she knew more. What I know is what I saw with my own eyes that day. Nora was crying and talking to Kevin, yet she dared to claim she didn't meet him. Are you telling the truth? If so, then it's serious. That oath won't take long to manifest. His wife didn't care much for Nora, always gossiping and causing arguments among families. So she disliked her. So she simply said, "Oh, let her be. If she dies, our village will be more peaceful." The old man knew his wife wasn't malicious, but perhaps she was too frustrated to speak that way. He tried to reassure her, "Don't worry too much. She's sworn many times, and nothing has happened. Just do your work. I'm going to the village head's house for a bit. Then I'll be back." Nothing unusual happened until nearly a month later. Heavy rains poured down, confining most villagers indoors. In Lena's small roadside stall, she, being alone, had set up a makeshift canopy to sell hot tea. 3 people were already inside, seeking refuge from the rain and enjoying hot tea while chatting. "Hey, ladies, has anyone heard if our village has a ghost lately?" "Oh, come on. Who believes in such nonsense?" "I certainly don't," exclaimed one woman rather loudly. Lena looked over to see Nora settling her hefty backside onto a chair, her mouth already set for a rant. Lena shook her head, unable to change Nora's gossiping ways. But as a shop owner, she had to serve customers. Yes. "Nora, would you like a warm cup of tea to chase away the chill?" "Yes, please. A cup for me. And one for me, please." A hot cup of tea on a rainy day like this. "Nothing beats it," Nora replied, then turned back to continue her conversation with the other 3 women. "Honestly, there's no such thing as ghosts in this village. Why do you ladies make such a big deal out of it? I've walked home alone at midnight many times and never seen a ghost." "Oh, don't say that, dear. There are spirits and there are blessings. If you don't believe, you shouldn't speak so lightly," the other woman retorted, refusing to back down. Nora's stubbornness was legendary, a trait she seemed born with, so she argued back. "Are you saying there really are ghosts? Do you dare to bet with me?" The other 3 women, not to be outdone, chorused there. "What kind of bet do you want?" "All right, you ladies tell me where there's a ghost. I'll go sleep there for a night to prove it to you. If I stay there until morning and nothing happens, you all treat me to food for a month. Otherwise, I'll treat the 3 of you for a month. 1 against 3. What do you say?" The 3 women were a bit worried but couldn't bear to lose, so they agreed to play along. If they lost, each would just have to treat Nora for 10 days. If they won, Nora would be broke for life. "I accept." "So, tonight, do you dare to sleep in the abandoned house at the end of the village?" Nora had never believed in such things, having sworn many times without encountering anything strange. So she happily accepted, but with a condition. "I'll go there tonight, but you ladies need to give me an advance." "But chicken right now." The 3 women were annoyed, but they wanted to teach Nora a lesson, to make her fear and abandon her arrogant disbelief in the supernatural. So, they agreed to give her a chicken. Oh, you want to eat in advance, do you? If you eat in advance, then tomorrow you'll have to pay back 3 chickens, all right? Dream on, ladies. Just wait and buy food for me for the whole month. Nora stood up, brushed her large backside, and continued. Now I'm going home to prepare to go there. You ladies bring the chicken to my house, all right? And pay for all. Everyone shook their heads in dismay at her personality. So, the women decided to teach her a lesson so she wouldn't blaspheme the spirits anymore. The rain stopped, but the village road was no longer beautiful due to the heavy downpour, with many sections flooded. But the 3 women who made the bet with Nora had prepared everything and were on their way to her house to deliver the chicken. Nora came out to get the chicken and confidently declared, "Why are you making such a fuss over 1 chicken? Tomorrow, you'll have to bring me a whole pig as well. Remember not to break your promise. I've already made a written agreement for the village head to see." No backing out now. Just then, the village head happened to pass by and asked the women, "What kind of game are you playing that Nora is making these documents?" He held up the paper Nora had written, which looked like a betting contract between the parties. The 3 women read it and felt a chill. Nora was too cunning and greedy, so they were determined to teach her a lesson. They agreed to follow the contract. If she lost, they would ensure she fulfilled her end for them. Considering their financial situation, the 3 women could afford to pay if they lost. But if they won, the village would truly suffer from Nora's difficult and lazy nature, as she preferred gossiping over working. The 4 people stood before the village head, signing the agreement. After everything was settled, Nora took the chicken into her house to butcher it immediately. After 6 p.m., she kept her promise and went straight to the abandoned house at the end of the village to sleep. The 3 women and the village head went along. Everyone in the village knew about the women's bet. So, someone remarked, "This time, Nora won't get away with it." The truth was, the abandoned house really was haunted. Its previous owner had hanged himself inside. Later, anyone passing by and looking through the window would see the dangling corpse. Many people had witnessed it, but no one dared to speak about it publicly. So, the whole village had left the house untouched as a gesture of pity for the deceased. When Nora entered the house, everyone outside was worried. If anything unfortunate happened, it would be difficult to handle. So, they called for her to come back, but she shouted, "Only fools believe in such nonsense. I'll show everyone the truth." She walked straight into the house, closed the door, and even tied it shut through a crack. After a while, everyone started to leave. They had walked some distance when they encountered Henry, Nora's husband, stumbling drunkenly, his steps unsteady. He was covered in mud, likely from falling several times. His slurred voice asked, "Has anyone seen that gossiping woman, my wife?" "Well, that witch hasn't done anything useful tonight. Only good for spreading rumors." The village head immediately said, "What have you done that you speak of your wife that way?" "Oh, it's the village head." "You speak well, sir. I just needed to drink to forget my sorrow. Well, I'm going home now. Tonight, I'll teach that woman a lesson. With that, he staggered home. A truly pathetic sight. One could imagine the state of a drunken man walking like that. Suddenly, a terrifying clap of thunder made everyone feel as if the earth had trembled. When they regained their senses, they saw Henry lying motionless in a puddle on the ground. At first, they thought he had simply fallen due to his drunkenness. But when they touched him, everyone gasped and recoiled their hands. His entire body was scorching hot, and smoke rose from him. A bad omen. The village head ran over and flipped him onto his back. Oh dear, his face was distorted, unrecognizable. Someone clutched their stomach and vomited. The village head exclaimed, "How can this be? There's no rain, and there haven't been dark clouds for a long time. How could lightning strike him?" There was much talk about the death of Henry, Nora's husband. Village head, what kind of omen is this? What omen? It's divine retribution. That's what it is. Retribution for what? For her dreadful oath that her entire family would die a tragic death. At this, some found it plausible due to the unusually strange nature of his death. If it had been raining, thunder and lightning would be normal. But it had rained that morning, and now the sky was clear and blue. Where could lightning come from? However, some believed it was simply his terribly bad luck that he died so violently. The village head said nothing but felt there were, indeed, several unusual aspects. As far as he knew, lightning strikes weren't rare. But anyone near a person struck by lightning would usually be affected. Yeah, over 20 people were close to Henry, and no one was harmed. But regardless, the unfortunate man was dead. So he told everyone to carry the body home and quickly informed Nora to return for the funeral arrangements. The incident stirred up the entire village, and people flocked to Nora's house to offer condolences. But there was also a morbid curiosity about the death, embellished by many, making it 100 times more terrifying. Around 8 p.m., people were bustling in and out of Nora's house. But she was nowhere to be found. Who went with Nora this afternoon? Why isn't she back yet? The village head asked, as she hadn't returned home to arrange the funeral. He received no answer. Someone else loudly asked the crowd in the yard if anyone had gone to inform her. Still, no one spoke up. Sir, maybe I should run and call her. Everyone was probably too confused earlier to remember. A young man asked, volunteering to inform Nora. All right, go quickly, the village head said. Everyone else has prepared the coffin for Henry and placed him inside, waiting for his wife and children to see him one last time. As the young man set off to inform Nora, he encountered an inexplicable problem. Wanting to go fast, he ran. Oh! When he neared the spot where Henry had been struck by lightning and died that afternoon, he saw a figure stumbling erratically, like a drunk. Hey, sir. Are you too drunk to find your way home? Let me help you. But the person in front didn't answer and kept walking. The young man, assuming the person was too drunk to see, ran closer to ask again. Excuse me, sir. Let me help you home. He reached the person's side, breathless from exhaustion. When he looked up to see who it was, a loud shriek erupted in his face. Why are you talking so loudly, you insolent fool? Then he stammered, unable to utter a word, falling backward and scrambling away. Because that person was Henry, who had just died. Due to the slippery ground and his terror, the young man fell countless times, just kept running headlong all the way back. Nora, meanwhile, was not having a pleasant time in the abandoned house. A chilling sensation came over her as soon as she entered, but she just thought it was cold because no one lived there. She gathered some branches and built a fire to warm herself. Then she took out some sweet potatoes to roast. She was so engrossed in roasting them that she didn't notice a pair of blood-red eyes watching her from the shadows. Her defiant nature manifested in her words, for even now, sitting in a haunted house, she wouldn't stop blaspheming ghosts. Those idiots are afraid of some ridiculous ghosts and scare themselves, then scare others too, right? She spun around, startled, but no one was there. She figured she was mistaken, so she took out a sweet potato, eating and saying, "Here I am. Any ghost or demon, come out and show your face. Only good for scaring like a coward." She ate, thinking of her victory tomorrow and how she'd enjoy free food for a month, then giggled to herself. Just then, a sound came from behind a rotting wooden partition. She quietly approached, intending to catch whatever mouse was making noise and make a meal of it. Perhaps her gluttony was greater than her fear, so she knew no fear. When she peeked her head in, she saw her own face, smiling exactly as she was. But there was no mirror there to reflect her image. "Oh, that's strange. Who put a mirror here? I look pretty good, actually. Still oblivious." She turned back to the fire and continued eating her sweet potato as if nothing had happened. A creaking sound, as if someone was sitting on a rocking chair, echoed again. She went to investigate and froze in her tracks as a person lay there, rocking back and forth as if being cradled. What was strange was that the person lay as if floating, with nothing underneath. Then the figure slowly turned its head to look at her, a ghostly smile on its face. She fell to the ground and crawled inch by inch out of the house. From behind, she heard footsteps approaching her. She quickly said, "Who's there? Don't try to scare me." "I'm not afraid." "That's right. Why would you be afraid?" "You dared to swear such a dreadful oath after doing evil." The voice seemed to whisper right next to her ear, making her collapse like a lifeless corpse. But the voice spoke again, this time terrifying her 1,000 times more. "You will witness your entire family die a tragic death. Your husband is already dead. Go back and see his face." She shot up as if she couldn't believe her ears, then wondered, how does it know I swore that oath? Is it really a ghost? As if understanding Nora's thoughts, the figure slowly rose into the air, gliding as lightly as the wind, turning to show her who was standing before her. She sprang up and rushed out. As she neared the door, it swung wide open. When she first entered, Nora had tied the door with a rope so outsiders wouldn't know how much she was pretending. As soon as she was outside, the door slammed shut with a thunderous bang, followed by a chilling, eerie laugh. Back at Nora's house, no one understood why she hadn't returned. Several people had gone to ask about her. Her 2 daughters and 1 son had also been informed. Only her youngest son, Finn, had returned. Her 2 daughters lived in a neighboring village with their husbands and hadn't arrived yet. By now, it was almost 9 p.m., but Nora's house was still crowded with people helping the family. Finn, her youngest son, sat there, crying inconsolably, as he loved his father dearly. In this family, only Henry and Finn were well liked by many. Nora and her two daughters, however, shared the same unpleasant temperament. That's why her two daughters had married in a neighboring village, as no man in their own village dared to approach them. Henry, though he drank often, had never offended anyone. He was also very helpful to those in need, provided they offered him a bottle of liquor afterward. Despite his drinking, he always knew right from wrong. Finn was also diligent and gentle. Only his mother and two older sisters were almost universally disliked, with most villagers wishing they would die early. My fellow villagers, I have a few words to say. Regardless of Nora's character, I hope everyone can put that aside and help her family organize Henry's funeral. What do you all think? The village head spoke up, asking the villagers to assist with Henry's funeral. This is why our ancestors had a saying, "Sell distant relatives, buy nearby neighbors." Many supported the village head's idea, bringing rice and other necessities, each contributing what they could. Life in this village was humble. No one was wealthier than another, and simply having enough to eat and wear was a blessing. No one needed to be asked. Everyone lent a hand. It was 10 p.m. when Nora finally returned home. As she entered the yard, everyone was startled, some even frightened. Her face was pale, and she walked like a zombie. Her clothes were covered in mud. Everyone thought she was shocked by the news of her husband's death. But no one knew what had actually happened to Nora. The ghost in the house had spoken, but in her terror, she hadn't understood or remembered anything. The women standing nearby rushed to help her, leading her into the bathroom to change her clothes. An hour later, when she had calmed down, she asked, "Everyone? Everyone? What's going on? Why are so many people gathered here?" Someone, thinking she was in shock and needed to be brought back to reality, asked her, "Haven't you heard, madam?" "Heard what?" "I just fled from that female ghost in the abandoned house." "I barely escaped." "What could I have heard?" Everyone exchanged bewildered glances, unsure if she was truly insane. "But then those who went to tell you said Henry had died." "What? This woman is truly insane." "I lost the bet." "So my husband died, did he?" Nora still couldn't believe what everyone was saying, but the village head took her hand and led her to the coffin. "Come, look inside and see who it is." But when she looked, she saw a pale, ashen face with blurry, wide-staring eyes fixed on her. The mouth stretched into an ear-to-ear grin, but no one else saw it. Suddenly, she screamed in panic, falling to the ground and crawling away, stammering, "Please, madam, don't haunt me anymore. I know I was wrong. I won't disrespect you again." At this point, everyone probably understood why she had gone insane, and a chilling dread spread through everyone present. No one dared to stand near the coffin, knowing Henry's death was not as natural as they had initially thought. "Madam, calm down and tell us what happened." Another woman helped her up and asked. But Nora, having lost her soul to terror, wouldn't stop pleading for forgiveness. By now, many were convinced that Nora was suffering the consequences of her terrible oath. This brought with it a new dread, knowing that more deaths were surely to come. After a long while, Nora fainted from exhaustion. So, the villagers took over all the funeral arrangements. Finn had stopped crying and calmly approached, asking about the cause of his father's death and his mother's condition. "Uncles, why did my father die so tragically?" Surrounded by a dozen people, the village head sighed, speaking with some reluctance. "Your father died from a lightning strike this afternoon. But there's something strange about the others who were nearby." He paused, unsure whether to continue, as he also suspected it was retribution from Nora's oath. "Yes, what's strange?" "Please tell me, sir," Finn pressed, curious about the village head's words. "Someone spoke up on behalf of the village head, sir. I think your father's death is strange, because there were no clouds or thunder. If it was a lightning strike, his face wouldn't be so disfigured." This explanation didn't seem to convince Finn, who still believed there must be another cause, connected to his mother. "Please, tell me everything, uncles." "I don't believe it's that simple. I think it must be related to my mother." Everyone looked at each other, unsure how best to respond. But they had to tell Finn everything to find a way to stop it. If everyone's suspicions were true, the consequences would be even more catastrophic. The village head then spoke to Finn. "Finn, after you've arranged your father's funeral, you should find a master or a priest to come here and undo your mother's oath." "Undo the oath? What does that mean, sir?" Finn was very surprised when the village head mentioned an oath. At this, Nina spoke up. "I feel very uneasy, because I am somewhat involved too. Last month, your mother and I had a bit of an argument. She wanted to prove her innocence, so she swore a dreadful oath to heaven." "What?" "My mother swore a dreadful oath." "Oh my God! Why can't my mother stop gossiping about other people's business? Please, sir, tell me clearly what that oath was." Perhaps no one wanted to hide anything further, as the situation had reached a critical point and required immediate intervention. So, they recounted the entire incident that led to that ominous oath. Finn was speechless after hearing the whole story. He understood his mother's nature too well and felt ashamed that the villagers, instead of shunning them, were kindly helping them like this. "I'm very grateful for everyone's kindness to my family. I understand the cause now. After the funeral, I will find someone to undo the curse." Then everyone sat there, talking and trying to keep the family from completely falling apart. In fact, some suggested closing the coffin, fearing that other invisible entities might appear. But because Nora's 2 daughters hadn't arrived yet, they decided to wait until the next morning. People sat around, sipping porridge and a few glasses of wine to pass the time. The night deepened, and some who stayed behind began to feel drowsy. Suddenly, a faint weeping echoed from somewhere, startling everyone. The weeping grew louder and louder, gradually revealing its source: the main road outside. Everyone looked to see if it was a person or something else causing the disturbance. The crying suddenly ceased, and 2 indistinct figures appeared faintly in the yard. Everyone held their breath, unable to believe they were seeing spirits with their own eyes. A sudden shout made everyone jump, as they had been holding their breath as if they were about to die with Henry. Now, they sighed in relief, realizing it was Henry's 2 daughters who had arrived. The 2 girls ran and cried, calling out their father's name, and everyone else rushed towards them. A few others were following behind. When they got closer, they realized it was the families of the 2 daughters' husbands. Nora, meanwhile, just sat there crying, completely unaware of what was happening. Fearing the invisible entities in the night, she didn't go to greet her in-laws. So the village head had to instruct her family to welcome them. The two sons-in-law also came to pay their last respects to their father-in-law, then went to prepare food and drinks to host the guests. As things settled, a black cat suddenly appeared. It stood on the beam in the middle of the house, meowing eerily. Since the coffin hadn't been closed, everyone panicked and rushed to find the lid and seal it. According to folk custom, if a black cat or a spirit cat jumps over a corpse, the body will reanimate and anyone it touches will die. But this cat simply sat there, staring at the coffin and meowing mournfully. Its appearance was also very unusual, as hardly any families in the village kept black cats. Even more eerie were its blood-red eyes. This was considered a bad omen during a funeral. The whole house erupted in chaos. Some ran to find something to catch the cat. Others ran to close the coffin lid. Some women were so terrified they almost fainted. A moment later, the black cat jumped into Nora's room. But once inside, no one could find it. It couldn't have run out the back door because as soon as it jumped down, someone was already blocking the room door, and there were no other openings for the black cat to escape through. Even with a dozen people searching with lamps, they couldn't find it. After nearly half an hour of searching fruitlessly, the second daughter went in to ask Nora, but her words made everyone freeze. "Mom, there's a girl standing outside our house, staring in constantly." I invited her in to play, but she said, "It's almost time." After saying that, she walked away towards the back. Nora's eyes became even more panicked. The village head and all the villagers were bewildered by this statement. "Quick, you two, hurry and go back to your own village before it's too late." Nora's eldest daughter shouted at her two daughters. She urged her two sons-in-law to quickly take their wives back, not letting them stay here any longer. Nora's daughters didn't understand what was happening and refused. Only then did Nora tell her two daughters the truth about the cause and who the girl they had just seen was. When those present confirmed Nora's story, they believed her and were very saddened that their mother had dared to risk her entire family's lives with an oath. But seeing their mother's remorse, the two daughters said nothing more, helping their husbands to the horse cart to return to their village. But the terrifying events weren't over. For no apparent reason, the two horses pulling the cart mysteriously collapsed and died. When the village head and a few others went to investigate, they discovered the truth. The village head even examined the cause of death for the two horses, and his face turned pale when he saw that both horses had been completely drained of blood. It seemed that Nora's family was truly facing a great calamity this time. Perhaps her oath had indeed become potent, and was now coming true. The villagers had never witnessed such an event before, so no one knew how to break the curse. Seeing the dire situation, the village head called everyone back into the house to discuss other solutions. "I think you two should stay here until tomorrow morning, then find a way to go back to your village. It's too dangerous to travel at this hour. Perhaps your mother swore the oath at an auspicious time." David, Nora's in-law, also spoke up. "I agree with the village head. It's not uncommon for people's oaths to come true if sworn at an auspicious time. In my old village, there were a few similar cases, but luckily they found a master who successfully resolved it, so only 2 lives were lost in that family." David's wife, Miss Ran, also added, "Yes. Remember, we must find a master to undo this curse. These spiritual matters are very serious and not to be trifled with. You've traveled to many places. Do you know anyone who is a master? David sat in thought, everyone's eyes fixed on him, waiting. Nina, now calmer, came and sat closer to him, asking, brother, can this matter, please try to remember if you know any masters. David sighed hopelessly and said, it's not that there isn't one, but that master lives very far away. If we travel by horse cart, it will take more than 10 days to get there. What he feared, and what everyone else also feared, was time. According to him, it would take at least 10 days to get there, meaning nearly a month for a round trip. Would Nora's 4 children be safe until then? It seemed all avenues were blocked. They could only wait. Then the village head spoke up. How about we go to the abandoned house and pray for forgiveness? What do you all think? No one spoke up, for they understood that the matter wasn't so easily resolved. Nora had tried once before, so she knew the outcome. She spoke up. The village head's idea won't work because I already prayed and asked her to spare my children and take my life instead. But it was rejected. Oh my heavens! So, are we just going to stand by and watch everyone die one by one? Nora's second son-in-law asked hopelessly. Everyone sat there, their hearts never at peace. It had to be said that they had never been in such a helpless situation. Although the villagers knew they wouldn't be next, who wasn't afraid of mentioning ghosts? And here, they were witnessing strange events firsthand. Ghosts! There are ghosts! Everyone! Someone's terrified shout rang out. The whole house's heart skipped a beat again. They hadn't even found a solution for the situation inside, and now it was happening outside. A moment later, a young man ran in, terrified, and collapsed on the ground. The village head immediately asked, Hey, what happened to you that you're running like you're fighting for your life? Helping the young man up, his face was completely drained of blood. From his appearance, they knew part of the reason, so they let him rest and calm down. David spoke up. I think we've been cursed. That's more like it. Nina immediately said, Hey, why are you saying that, sir? What kind of curse? Nina's question echoed the doubts of everyone present about David's statement, so he began to explain. I've heard that houses where someone commits suicide often have a curse left behind. In a neighboring village, there was a woman who hanged herself because her husband falsely accused her of infidelity. Before she died, she cursed anyone who slandered her, saying they would pay a heavy price. On the 49th day, a woman in that village, Misty, died. She was gored to death by her own buffalo so badly that her body was unrecognizable. Only then did they realize that she was the one who had spread rumors about the other wife's infidelity, causing her to commit suicide. Nina immediately asked, But what does that have to do with Nora, sir? The village head interrupted Nina. No, Auntie. Mr. David makes sense. The house Nora challenged in her bet was precisely the house where someone died because of slander. At this, everyone was curious, because very few knew this story, so they asked him to tell it in detail. Please tell us clearly, sir, so everyone can understand about that house. I've lived here for almost 20 years and never heard anything about it. The village head then said, It's a sad story from our village. I was only 20 at the time. Well, had they seen ya at Saint 12, I was at 12. That house belonged to a very wealthy family. The wife was very young, only in her early 20s, staying home to care for her 2-year-old son. Her husband was a merchant who only returned once a year. The tragic event was because that woman was very faithful. Yet, a few jealous people, because she had married a rich man, spread all sorts of malicious rumors about her. When her husband returned that time, he also heard people gossiping. But he paid no attention because he always trusted his wife. No one knows how fate intervened, but at dinner that evening, when she brought food to her husband, she vomited, which looked very much like a sign of morning sickness. So, her husband was furious and treated her terribly. No matter how she explained, he wouldn't listen. Those jealous women added fuel to the fire, causing that family to fall apart. That night, her husband drank a lot due to his anger. So, she cut her wrists to prove to her husband that she hadn't changed. When she died, her husband still suspected she was pregnant with someone else's child, so he called a doctor to perform an autopsy to see if she was really pregnant. But in the end, the doctor said she had intestinal problems coupled with poor health, which caused her death. By the time he understood the truth, it was too late. Her husband went mad and took their son, disappearing without a trace. Afterwards, people who tried to live in that house couldn't stay for more than 2 nights. They said they heard faint weeping every night, and sometimes even saw blood splattered in the bedroom where she committed suicide. By now, everyone understood why that house was abandoned, and no one dared to live there. They had spread rumors of ghosts, but had never known the real reason until now. David spoke again. I think perhaps her oath stirred up that soul, reminding her of her unjust suffering. Nina said, I think that's probably it. It's not so bad, is it? By now, it was almost dawn. So Nora calmly rearranged the space for everyone to rest. Henry's coffin lay there, constantly haunting everyone. At this moment, the young man who had run away, terrified, burst into the house, gasping for breath, then collapsed. The village head approached him gently. Tell me, what happened that made you scream like that? The young man then recounted the incident. Sir, I was walking here and saw someone walking ahead. I thought it was someone going to the funeral, so I called out to walk with them. But that person didn't say anything, so I ran faster to catch up. Suddenly, that person turned and asked, Are you coming to my funeral to eat? I was startled and looked closely, and it was Uncle Henry. He was grinning eerily, and that made me run for my life. David immediately said, Then his soul hasn't returned home yet. If someone dies on the road and their soul isn't called back, they won't know the way home. Hearing this, the women who had been resting sat up abruptly and exclaimed, Oh my God! How can we dare to go anywhere at night now? At this point, almost all avenues seemed blocked. Finding a master was difficult, and going home was even harder without a horse cart. It would take at least 4 days to reach the neighboring village. Who knew what they might encounter during that time? Then, things temporarily calmed down as dawn broke, and the fear of the night had somewhat lessened. It could be said that it was a terrifying night that stretched into eternity for those present at the funeral. Those who went out to investigate the cause of death of the two horses discovered two small holes in the bite marks on their necks, caused by some animal. It was a fatal bite that prevented the horses from making any sound. David then said, "Village head, I think we need to find a solution. The situation isn't good." He asked the village head, suggesting they find a master to resolve the bad luck, but they needed a fast way to travel. Perhaps understanding his meaning, the village head spoke up. "I understand. I'll see if anyone can help find two horses for you to travel quickly. But I'm not sure if I can find any." David firmly said, "It's all right, sir. Please help me find them. If you can, I will try to go as fast as possible to return." The village head hurried into the village to ask around, while David stayed to help Nora with the funeral arrangements. It was almost noon, and everyone was eating when the village head returned, leading two large black horses. Everyone rejoiced, filled with renewed hope. The village head then said, "Now, Mr. David, you will go. In my opinion, it's best for Nora to go too. The problem originated from her, and if you meet the master, it might be easier to explain." He looked towards Nora, who seemed brighter than yesterday. Her daughter went to ask her opinion. She also seemed to have the same intention, so she agreed. Nora said, "The village head is absolutely right. This matter is my fault, so I must take responsibility for it. I apologize to my in-law for having to go through such trouble because of me." David said, "Don't say that, Auntie. We are in-laws. Should we just stand by and watch someone die without helping? You should prepare your things. The sooner we go, the better." After everything was arranged, the two set off, while Nora's two daughters and Finn stayed at home to manage things. At night, many villagers gathered to keep the family company. Since the incident where the young man was scared by Henry's ghost, no one dared to go out after dark. Women stay indoors until the next morning before daring to peek outside. A week passed since Henry's death, and no other frightening incidents occurred. One of Nora's daughters-in-laws returned to his village, while David's wife, son, and daughter-in-law remained in the house, waiting for the two travelers to return. Finn had his own family, so he only visited daily to burn incense. Day after day, everyone thought things had settled down. But little did they know, when the storm came, the sky had been beautiful just before. This was the surprise for everyone. 10 days had passed since Henry's death. Nora and David were off to find a master to break the curse. The villagers hadn't encountered anything else either, so they thought it was safe to start working later. Sometimes, people would return home past midnight. In truth, it wasn't that the villagers weren't afraid, but life was becoming increasingly difficult. The daytime sun was scorching, making work impossible, so they had to work late to compensate for the unworked hours. But whenever they worked late, they always went in groups. Tonight, Nina's family was harvesting rice, so more than 10 people came to help. They finished and headed home around 11 p.m. Nina was chatting and laughing with two other women ahead of her, while nearly a dozen men followed about 10 meters behind them. Nina suddenly said, "Hey, which old man is that? Drinking and coming home so late, ladies? I tell you, if he keeps doing that, his wife and children at home will be worried sick." It's truly hard to have a drunkard husband. A neighbor chimed in. Oh my goodness. If my husband drank like that, he'd be sleeping in the yard tonight, not in a house. But suddenly, the third woman, walking beside them, grabbed both their hands and whispered, trembling, "Isn't that Henry?" At this, the person in front stopped moving. The three women paused and looked closely, as it was dark and the light from the torch couldn't illuminate clearly. Nina said, "Hey, don't say that. I don't think it looks like him at all." Nina's husband, who was behind them, teasingly said, "Hey, are you scared of ghosts now that you don't dare to walk anymore? We asked you to walk together, but you refused." The men laughed, thinking the women were just scared of ghosts, but still walking ahead. But as they got closer, they also froze. Standing before them was indeed Henry, one side of his face grotesquely disfigured by the lightning strike, blood still oozing down, soaking his shirt. The three women didn't just stand firm. They were rooted to the spot, stiff as stone. Despite their fear, the men had to drag the women to run home. As the whole group ran headlong, laughter and voices echoed behind them. "I'll catch you all. You're coming with me." The voice was so close, right in their ears, not from a distance, enough to kill anyone with a weak heart. They ran and screamed through the village, causing many to panic and rush out to see what was happening. The village head immediately said, "Hey, are you people being chased by ghosts? Why are you screaming in the middle of the night?" Nina's husband replied, It's true. Village head, we're being chased by a ghost. It's Henry's ghost. He even said he would take us with him." Seeing the terror on everyone's faces, the village head understood that this was not the end, but only the beginning. Everyone dispersed at the village head's command, and from then on, no one was allowed to work past 5 p.m. All oil lamps were extinguished, leaving only the blackness of night. In the darkness, most people thought no one would be awake to do anything, but they were wrong. While the people of flesh and blood rested peacefully, in the dark sky outside, wandering souls drifted along the village road, weeping over their fate. The sorrowful wailing woke up the hard-working villagers. Although everyone heard a woman's crying, no one dared to go outside to look. After the crying came the terrified screams of someone being brutally tortured. The dogs in the village and even the wild wolves in the forest howled as a warning, or perhaps they were also crying out in fear. "Oh my God, blood, everyone!" Someone's voice on the road was filled with panic. By now, it was morning, and mist still lingered gracefully over the blades of grass. Hearing the commotion, the village head woke up to investigate. Alas, a long streak of bright red blood lay on the village road. Following the blood trail, everyone was horrified when it led to the abandoned house at the end of the village. The village head immediately said, "What happened last night? Whose blood is this?" He stood there asking, knowing full well there would be no answer, as almost everyone had been inside their homes and couldn't know the cause. Nina asked, "Is anyone missing from any household?" Everyone then checked to see if any family members were missing. After a long check, it was reported that no one was missing. This only increased their panic. Where did the blood come from, and whose crying and screaming were heard in the night? The 80-year-old man, Paul, who had known something was amiss in the village from the start, had been away for a month. A few days later, he heard the news of Henry's death. Now he spoke up, If I'm not mistaken, this is Nora's blood." The village head immediately said, "Mr. Paul, what do you mean by that? How can you be so sure?" Paul's words probably surprised everyone, because Nora had gone with David to find a master over 10 days ago. So how could she have been killed here? He slowly recounted the events. "Actually, a month ago, I went to look for a master myself. Right after Nora swore her dreadful oath, a strange phenomenon occurred. So, I was very worried because my previous village had experienced similar events, which resulted in many deaths, and I had to leave to live here." Nina quickly asked, "Please, explain more, sir. If we don't find a master to resolve this, what will the consequences be?" Paul said, "I'm sure you've all seen it. First, it's the family of the one who swore the oath. Then, because they died unjustly, their souls will return to seek out and take others. Only then will they find peace. According to our ancestors, those who die unjustly or violently have a very hard time reincarnating. Someone must sacrifice their life to match theirs for them to move on. In my old village, over 100 people died this way. Our village is now facing something similar, so the number of deaths won't stop with Nora's family." The village head asked, "So, what happened when you met the master? Were you able to bring him back?" David replied, "No, I met a master, and he told me that I was facing great danger, but I would receive help from someone. However, he didn't say when. He isn't capable of resolving this matter because our village has an ancient curse, and only someone born in this village can resolve it." This statement was tantamount to telling everyone to sit and wait for death in the village. No one knew anything about charms or who had caused that curse so many years ago that Nora had accidentally stirred up today. Then we'll just die. How can we live, oh heavens? The villagers cried out in despair, for no one knew the root of the problem. To understand the situation better, the village head and a few others decided to go into the abandoned house. If Nora's body was indeed inside, then Paul was right. At this, Paul and a few others helped the village head enter to investigate, while the villagers stood outside waiting, hoping that this blood wasn't human. Inside the house, upon entering, everyone could feel a chilling cold deep in their bones. Even though it was morning and there was cold mist outside, it was nothing compared to the cold inside. Thin wisps of mist floated gently, and a foul, pungent smell spread everywhere. Some had to pinch their noses, for though they were accustomed to the smell of earth, they had never found this odor so unbearable. Paul immediately said, "What is that horrible smell?" The village had replied, "It must be the smell of blood. But I don't know why it smells so putrid." Inside the house, only Paul and the village head remained. The others had run outside, unable to tolerate the foul stench. Looking at the house, one could tell how powerful and wealthy its former owner must have been. The house was old, but still quite sturdy, with precious wooden pillars. It also had a very airy space and an attic. The two men went inside, but found nothing, so they decided to go up to the attic. The putrid smell clearly indicated something was decaying up there. Step by step, the two old men proceeded cautiously. A wrong step could easily be fatal. Paul then said, "Look over there!" Paul cried out when he saw bloodstains in front of a room. The two men approached and froze for a few minutes before calming themselves. The village head then said, "You were right. She died right in here." "How did she end up dying here?" The two old men looked at each other, their facial muscles twitching repeatedly, standing before Nora's terribly grotesque corpse. No one knew how she had left, yet her body was discovered here nearly 10 days later. Almost her entire body was flayed, except for her face and her belly, which had been gouged out. The most terrifying thing was that her internal organs had been eaten by something. Paul then said, "How can we bring her down? Village head, not many people can come up here. Only you and I can bring her down." The village head replied, "All right, let's wrap her in a blanket and bring her down slowly. Then we'll call more people to help." The two old men agreed and immediately set to work. After quite a while, they managed to bring the body down. Then Paul ran out to call more people for assistance. Nora's children, upon hearing the news, could only cry, unable to think of anything else. At the village head's house, he only opened the top part of the coffin for her two children to see her face. He dared not open it completely. Indeed, Nora's corpse was truly gruesome, many times more horrifying than Henry's. At this, everyone was confused and asked, "Where is David?" She went with him, didn't she? David's wife sat like a lost soul, worried about her husband. A great sorrow descended upon this once beautiful and peaceful village. At this point, no one knew what to do or where to go. Farming was abandoned because it was too sunny during the day and too dangerous at night, so everything was neglected. Villagers brought offerings to pray for appeasement, but as soon as the offerings were laid out, everything automatically flew to the ground. Every night, the sounds of crying and mad wailing echoed, causing the villagers endless suffering. The villagers discussed among themselves. They said, "This can't go on. Village head, not a single night do we get peaceful sleep. Sometimes it even knocks on our doors, making my wife and children scream in fear." According to their explanations, they hadn't had peace for over a week. Perhaps because Nora and her husband had died so unjustly. Their souls returned every night to lament and demand justice. Today, like every other day, a gloomy and somber atmosphere enveloped the entire village. Nora's house had, at some point, become an ostracized and terrifying place. No one dared to pass by. Only Finn would go there every afternoon to light incense for his parents. His two elder sisters stayed at the village head's house, waiting for the 49-day mourning period to pass before returning to their husbands' homes. As the two old men sat there, discussing who could help the village, two people entered the alleyway, one old and one young. The younger one was dressed like a sorcerer, though it was hard to see clearly because they had covered their faces. Only when they stepped in front of everyone did they realize it was David, and his wife's eyes were swollen from crying, worried about him. The villagers were also relieved to see him return safely. The village head then asked, "Mr. David, how did you return safely when Nora did not?" This question was on everyone's mind. They wanted to know about the two people's journey. David slowly sipped his tea, then began to recount the truth. After 2 days of travel, strange things started happening. The two horses kept going wild. Sometimes they would run uncontrollably. Other times they refused to take a single step. We were passing through a very large ancient forest when suddenly both horses plunged into a ravine. I was lucky enough to jump clear, but Nora was dragged down with the cart. The village head then said, "Then how did her body end up in the abandoned house at the end of the village? And when it was discovered nearly 10 days later, it wasn't decomposed as if she had just been killed." Paul immediately said, "If that's the case, then it implies Nora miraculously didn't die after falling. So, she returned alone. But unfortunately, when she entered the village, she was caught and killed by the ghost." Paul's explanation was the most widely accepted, as there was no other more reasonable explanation. David continued, "After escaping death, I was also seriously injured from hitting rocks, breaking my arm. I lay unconscious there, and I don't know where Master Ben came from, but he happened to pass by and helped me in time." At this, everyone looked over at the stranger. Outwardly, he appeared to be in his early 40s. He was tall, robust, and looked very kind and benevolent. David then said, "When I regained consciousness and we talked, I learned that he is a master. While he was in the forest looking for medicinal herbs, he found me lying unconscious and brought me back for treatment. After I told him about the village's situation, he said he would help, so I brought him here. After he finished, everyone rejoiced that they had a master to undo the curse on the village." But Paul still seemed unsatisfied and looked at the young man, asking, "So, Master, are you sure you can help with this?" If you're not sure, the village head is also worried because, according to Mr. Paul, only someone born in this village can break the curse. So that's the main concern, David said. "But what other choice do we have now? I think it must be fate that we met Master Ben, right?" Paul agreed, saying, "You're right, sir. It's fate. If he can help, that's great. Otherwise, we just have to accept it. What other choice do we have?" Master Ben then spoke up. "Just let me try, sirs. I have resolved a few similar cases before." Hearing this, the village head immediately said, "Then, when would you like to perform the ritual? And what do you need?" "We will prepare it," Master Ben replied. "Tonight is the full moon. Ghosts will use this opportunity to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, making them weakest and easiest to destroy. So, tonight is best. Please prepare an offering table for me, and that will be enough." After everything was arranged, Master Ben was invited to stay at the village head's house, along with David and his wife. Everyone also brought pigs to celebrate David's safe return and to welcome the master who came to help the villagers. After eating and drinking to their fill, many returned home, while the rest followed Master Ben to catch the ghost. Upon arriving, everyone stood outside, about 20 meters away from where the ritual would take place. They only saw Master Ben muttering something, then performing some gestures. Suddenly, the wind began to howl, sounding more terrifying than usual. Then, clouds gathered, obscuring the moonlight, making the scene even darker and colder. Incense sticks were continuously lit. Then suddenly, they were all flung into the air. Master Ben leaped backward a few steps. He took out a talisman, bit his finger to draw blood, inscribed a character on the talisman, and then hurled it forward. Immediately after, a wooden sword also flew with it. With a loud explosion, Master Ben fell backward. And at that exact moment, the sound of the ghost's cries also erupted. Master Ben had just stood up, not yet able to make a hand seal, when a tree branch flew out of the house and struck him. Luckily, he dodged it just in time, only receiving a graze on his arm. Perhaps Master Ben was enraged by this ghost, because a black mass charged towards him, and he took out another talisman with one hand and threw it. But perhaps he was a bit slow, because another explosion rang out, tearing Master Ben's robe and leaving a very deep cut on his chest, sending him falling backward, dazed. People rushed forward in a panic, but Master Ben raised his hand, gesturing for no one to come near. He probably understood the danger of that soul. Seeing him get up, still in pain, everyone felt sympathetic. Master Ben must have been doing something very important. As soon as he sat up, Master Ben took out a knife and several more talismans. He used the knife to cut his finger, wrote on the talismans with his blood, then pressed his palms together and murmured an incantation. At that moment, a white shadow appeared. It was a woman. Instead of a terrifying appearance, she had a beautiful face. She looked towards Master Ben, who was performing the ritual, with a certain expression in her eyes. Master Ben shouted loudly, startling everyone. "Break!" A cry of extreme pain erupted from the soul, which then fell to the ground, its eyes still looking at Master Ben with profound affection. "Are you my son, Ben?" At this, everyone was surprised, not understanding what was happening. Master Ben stood closer and asked, "How do you know me? Who are you?" The soul was struggling to gather its last bit of strength to say something to Master Ben. "I am your mother. And your father." "What? My mother? What proof do you have?" "The birthmark on your left arm is the proof. And your father is like Hacknea." Master Ben's face showed disbelief. But as he thought about it, something felt wrong. According to his spiritual practice, he wasn't sure he could defeat her. Yet, at the final spell, she stood still, allowing herself to be struck without retaliating. And another thing was that his mother was indeed named Chan, and his father was like Hacknea. He remembered his great-grandfather's words, who had once said that he had done something that caused his mother to commit suicide. And then he left his homeland, taking his child to a foreign land. Looking into the soul's eyes, it was indeed the loving gaze of a mother towards her child. At this, the village head approached Master Ben and asked, "Master, is this the son of Mr. Lai Hacknea?" "Then she is your mother." After the village head recounted the events that happened more than 40 years ago, Master Ben believed. But it was truly tragic that mother and son were reunited in such a destructive encounter. He went to her, embracing her as if he were a child. She caressed the head of the little child she had once held in her arms, whose hair was now streaked with grey. She gently kissed her son's forehead, then slowly faded into nothingness. Witnessing this scene, no one could hold back their tears, a reunion steeped in sorrow. Knowing the truth of his origins, Master Ben decided to stay in that very house to burn incense for his parents. Perhaps his mother was also happy in the afterlife, knowing that everything had come to light, and that the small child she once held had grown into a man who helped others. Now,